Here are the top stories for today, October 21, 2021. President Rodrigo Duterte wants the vaccination drive to go at a faster pace, this time in the provinces as it steps up to curb infections while more vaccine supplies pour into the country. Aid from Down Under, Australia donates another 100 oxygen concentrators to the Philippines to beef up COVID-19 response. Canberra will also increase its COVID-19 aid to Manila to buy more than 400 million pesos. No let-up in Manila's move against Beijing's continued incursions in the West Philippine Sea. The Foreign Affairs Department protests provocative acts of Chinese government vessels in the disputed waters. And the hope of a better future springs as two families are set to return to their hometown in Agusan Sur thanks to the Balik Probinsya Bagong Pag-asa program. Good day, I'm Marita Muahe. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. While COVID-19 vaccines delivery pours in this month, vaccine czar Carlito Galvez Jr. says its distribution remains a challenge. In Wednesday Talk to the People address, Galvez stressed the need to ramp up the vaccination drive to achieve population protection by December.
Noong sabi po, Mr. President, supply po ang problema po natin. Ngayon po, ang problema po natin yung throughput. Kung paano po natin i-administer yung mga vaccine. So ito po ang sinusolvin po namin ni Sec Beans, Sec Duque, at saka po ni Sec Anyo, kung paano po mapapipilis yung ating deployment from the national warehouse down to the administration site. Ito rin po ang problema po ng ibang mga cities na nababangga na po yung tinatawag nating hesitation. So ang gagawin po nila is magsusweeping po sila house to house and then barangay to barangay.
So far, Galvez said the government has already vaccinated 32% of the eligible population. He said the government is targeting to scale up the nationwide daily vaccination rate of up to 1.5 million doses to fulfill its promise of achieving a happy Christmas this year. It also wants to raise its target vaccination coverage from 70% to 90%.
Mr. President, as you have instructed to us, we need to strategize to increase the daily jobs and achieve people protection soon as possible time, particularly in key economic regions. So yung instruction niyo po na yung mga cities po, unahin po natin. And mag-mobilize po kami nila Sec Beans, ni Sec Duque, at saka si Sec Anyo, para po talaga mag-mobilize po natin ang ating mga LGUs, ang ating armed forces, ang ating police, and ating DOH regional offices. So ito po, we will comply to you. Now, we will be venturing to have really, a daily job of 1.5 million.
The Philippines received 100 more oxygen concentrators from the Australian government to help in the government's COVID-19 pandemic response. The latest donation from Australia is on top of the 100 more oxygen concentrators it donated last August. The first batch went to government hospitals in Central Luzon, Calabarzon, and Western and Central Visayas. Moreover, Australia also increased its COVID-19 aid to the country by donating 1.5 million Australian dollars, raising its total commitment to at least 1.79 billion pesos. The government of Brunei Darussalam also provided aid to the country by donating the AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine. A portion of the job arrived yesterday, with additional shipment expected to be delivered soon. National Task Force for COVID-19 Special Advisor Ted Herbosa welcomed the arrival of 2,000 out of the 20,000 doses of the donated COVID-19 vaccine at the Ninoy Aquino International Airport. Herbosa said the AstraZeneca vaccines will be administered to the general population, excluding minors, since only Pfizer and Moderna are allowed for 12 to 17 years old recipients. More hospitals and non-hospital facilities may soon be included among the venues for the pediatric vaccination program. This as President Rodrigo Duterte ordered the expansion of the inoculation of minors aged 12 to 17 years old. As the government works double time to achieve population protection by the end of the year, President Rodrigo Duterte said he wants to expand the pediatric vaccination drive by adding 13 more hospitals as vaccination sites. In an interview at the Laging Handa briefing, Dr. Kezia Rosario of the National Vaccination Operations Center said they are eyeing the use of non-hospital facilities in Phase 2 of pediatric inoculation due to the limitation of the hospitals. So far, a total of 3,416 children aged 12 to 17 with comorbidities have been vaccinated against the disease, and more are still waiting to receive the jab. The government target to vaccinate around 100,000 children with comorbidities in Metro Manila. In Bacolod City, master listing for pediatric vaccination drive is ongoing. The local government says it targets to inoculate more than 100,000 minors aged 12 to 17 years old against COVID-19 starting November 5. Parents of minors under the pediatric A3 group to register their children through their Google form link. Pre-registration for minors is also ongoing in the local government units in Iloilo City. The identification of vaccination sites nearer to hospitals and competent vaccination teams also continues. The Department of Environment and Natural Resources plans to implement measures against wading and swimming in the recently reopened Manila Bay Dolomite Beach. As the concentration of fecal coliform bacteria is still high, it said the department is already working to make it swimmable to attract more visitors.
Nakikita nga po ng ating pong kalihim na ipinipilit po na bago matapos ang administrasyong ito ay maging swimmable na po yung areang yan. Po. Yan po yung pinipilit ng ating pong kalihim Roy A. Simato na nakikita man naman po natin na talagang hindi ho imposibleng makamit natin dahil malaki na po ang ibinaba ng fecal coliform level po ng tubig natin.
The Dolomite Beach has reopened to the public on Saturday, October 16 after months of rigid quarantine protocols due to COVID-19 pandemic. Antiporda said the rehabilitation program of the Manila Bay would somehow alleviate the anxiety of the people amid the pandemic. It will also help small businesses in the area.
Well, actually, ganyan din po ang objective natin para humuling mabuhay ang mga negosyo dyan po sa Ross Boulevard. Since meron pong anxiety ang ating pong mga kababayan, isa hong malaking tulong din itong Dolomite Beach na ito na kung saan ay binuksan na po kaagad ng ating pong kalihim Roy A. Simato para kahit papaano ay makatulong sa atin sa gitna po ng pandemya.
Antiporda meanwhile assures that health measures are in place to prevent the spread of COVID-19.
Again, we are conducting the IATF rule on the said area. Yung ating pong protocol ay ginagawa naman po natin. And of course, makikita po natin meron man pong nagkukumpul-kumpul and sinasabihan po sila na yun nga pong social distancing and yung wearing po ng face mask ay hindi po maaring malabag ito.
The government is working towards mitigating the effects of climate change by launching more programs that promote various environmental initiatives. The details from William Theo.
The Climate Change Commission is calling on young innovators to contribute their skills and ideas to fight against climate change. The Commission, in partnership with a private institution, has launched KLIMATHON, wherein 10 finalists will undergo a mentorship program with industry and field experts to refine and further develop the concept papers on 3 climate change concerns. These are plastic waste management, energy efficiency and renewable energy, and food security. KLIMATHON is open for students and innovators aged 16 to 24 years old. Cash prizes and recognition also await the winning teams. Meanwhile, Angeles City, Pampanga also joins the fight against climate change by encouraging its residents to segregate waste and eliminate the use of plastics. Residents can exchange their recyclable plastics for rice. The plastics collected will then be sold to companies recycling plastic for hollow blocks and cement. The city government is set to launch the program in January. Meanwhile, the Butuan City Police Office launched its Bike and Plant program to promote environmental awareness among its personnel, partners, and other stakeholders. More than 50 participants from various organizations joined the launch that began with them biking 20 kilometers from the BCPO headquarters to Sitio Iao in Barangay Anticala, where they planted about 100 seedlings of indigenous and agroforestry tree species. For the PNA Newsroom, I am William Theo.
Iloilo City is pushing for the creation of a help desk in barangays that will address issues on mental health. This after the local government noted an increase in the number of suicide cases in the area. The proposed ordinance also aimed to localize Republic Act 11036 or the Mental Health Act and have it tailor-fit to the need of the locality. Meanwhile, the Department of Health has launched Lusog Isip. It is the country's first mobile application for mental health and self-care. Developed by USAID and DOH, the app was soft launched last week to expand access to culturally adapted, evidence-based tools and interventions on mental health. It also provides a list of mental health and psychosocial support service providers online or nearby. USAID is committed to supporting the promotion of this mobile app in schools, workplaces, and communities. The app is available for both Android and iOS devices through the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store. Still to come, the Justice Department releases its matrix on anti-drug operations that resulted in deaths. And the DFA protests provocative acts by Beijing in the West Philippine Sea. Details ahead, keep it here on the PNA Newsroom.
Mga kabida, importante pa rin ang disiplina sa pag-iwas sa pagkalat ng COVID-19. Upang masiguro ang kaligtasan ninyo at inyong mga pamilya, hanapin ang safety seal sticker sa inyong pupuntahan. Mapamall man ito, kainan, pasyalan, o kahit na anumang public o private business establishment. Ang safety seal ay tanda na ang isang establishment ay sumusunod sa minimum public health standards ng gobyerno upang maiwasan ang pagkalat ng COVID-19. Ating tandaan, bida ang may tatak. Hashtag safety seal para sa ligtas na pamilya, ligtas na bayan.
Mga kabida, hindi pa rin nawawala ang banta ng COVID-19. Upang masiguro ang kaligtasan ninyo at ng inyong pamilya, hanapin ang safety seal sticker na inyong pupuntahan. Mapamall man ito, kainan, pasyalan o kahit anumang business establishment, ang safety seal ay tanda na ang isang establishment ay sumusunod sa minimum public health standards ng gobyerno upang maiwasan ang pagkalat ng COVID-19. Ating tandaan, bida ang may disiplina. Hashtag safety seal para sa ligtas na pamilya, ligtas na bayan.
The Department of Justice released information on the initial batch of 52 cases it is reviewing as part of the government's policy of transparency on the anti-illegal drugs campaign. The matrix included docket numbers, names of deceased suspects, places and dates of the incidents, and the review panel's summary of observations on the cases. The most number of deaths in a single incident involved the operation in Iloilo, Zamboanga del Norte on July 29, 2016, which resulted in the deaths of 3 persons. The earliest case involved a man who was killed in a shootout with police in Fort Bonifacio, Taguig City on December 2016. PNP Chief General Guillermo Eleazar welcomed the DOJ decision to release the matrix of the cases, saying it is in the interest of truth, transparency, and justice. Meanwhile, Malacanang said the release of information on the 52 cases shows that President Rodrigo Duterte is not remiss in his obligation to investigate human rights violations during his term. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said information showed that the state is giving the victims an effective remedy to ensure that those guilty will be prosecuted. Roque noted that Duterte has discharged of his obligation as chief implementer of the law because he caused the filing of cases against those involved. He also expressed confidence that Duterte would be able to clear his name once he had stepped down from power. 2 weeks earlier, United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights Michelle Bachelet urged the Philippine government to publish the findings of the investigation. Authorities seized more than 500,000 pesos worth of illegal drugs and arrested 17 suspected drug personalities in different anti-drug operations in Bulacan on Tuesday and Wednesday morning. Acting Bulacan Provincial Director Colonel Manuel Ocban Jr. said 5 of the arrested drug suspects are reported to be high-value target individuals. A 17-year-old male was also among the arrested suspects. The report did not put in detail how many operations were conducted and how much worth of illegal drugs was seized in each sting. He said appropriate criminal complaints against the suspects are now being prepared for filing in court. In Davao Oriental, police seized about 600,000 pesos worth of marijuana leaves and arrested 1 suspect in a buy-bust operation in Barangay Dahican, Mati City on October 19. The Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency in Region 11 said around 5 kilos of suspected marijuana were seized from the suspect identified as Roy Binawi Malintad, alias a boy from Barangay Tumoang, Tarragona, Davao Oriental. The raiding team also seized another 6 big packs of suspected dried marijuana leaves, drug paraphernalia, and marked money. Authorities earlier conducted a marijuana eradication activity in the same barangay where Malintad was residing. The Department of Foreign Affairs has protested against Chinese government vessels that have repeatedly provoked Philippine authorities patrolling the country's waters. The DFA said it protested the unlawful issuance of over 200 radio challenges, sounding of sirens, and blowing of horns by Chinese government vessels against Filipino vessels. It said these provocative acts threaten the peace, order, and security of the South China Sea and run contrary to China's obligations under international law. The DFA has not provided further details regarding the provocation incidents. Last September, Foreign Affairs Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr. ordered the issuance of a note verbal against Beijing for restricting Filipino fishermen in the Scarborough Shoal. He also ordered a set of protests on unlawfully issued Chinese radio challenges and the continued presence of Chinese fishing vessels in the vicinity of Iroquois Reef. 2 families composed of 7 persons, of whom 4 are minors, have been added to the roster of beneficiaries for the Balik Probinsya Bagong Pag-asa program or BP2. The families are bound for Agusan Sur and are set to depart Manila on Friday, October 22. The 2 families arrived early at the BP2 depot at Agham Road in Quezon City on Thursday to undergo orientation as well as the health and security procedures. The Balik Probinsya Bagong Pag-asa program is a flagship program of the Duterte administration to promote equity in resources and boost countryside development. The program aims to decongest Metro Manila's urban areas by encouraging and assisting people, especially informal settlers, to return to their home provinces. In our business news, the government plans to close coal-fired power plants in Mindanao to help address climate change. The government is looking for a financing mechanism to improve the Agus Pulangi hydropower plant as part of efforts to tap more sustainable energy sources. Finance Secretary Carlos Dominguez III said a whole-of-nation strategy is needed to achieve the government's commitment to cut greenhouse gas emissions by 75% over the next decade. Dominguez said the government has tied up with the United Kingdom to implement the ASEAN Low-Carbon Energy Program, which will support the development of a green economy. Meanwhile, Bangko Sentral Governor Benjamin Diokno said the central bank and the banking sector consider the government's sustainable finance roadmap as enablers in unlocking financing to sustainability projects and initiatives. More stories from the newsroom. Boosting foreign relations. 8 new ambassadors present their credentials to the chief executive. And getting ready for action. It's the student athletes' turn to roll up their sleeves for a COVID-19 job. Back after a quick break, stay with the PNA Newsroom.
Hi everyone, James Deacon here. The COVID-19 vaccines are finally here, and the government wants to make sure the vaccines reach us. So let's do our part by making sure that we get registered to be included in the vaccination list of our LGU. You can register right in the comfort and safety of your own homes through your LGU's online registration platform. And you can also register on-site in the vaccination venues or through your barangay. Remember, getting vaccinated is the first step towards ending this pandemic. So let's do our part as disciplined citizens. Bida ang may disiplina. Magpakarehistro at magpabakuna para sa ligtas na pamilya, ligtas na bayan.
Ang disiplinadong Pilipino ay rehistrado para maging bakunado. Kaya tayo na po't magparehistro at magpabakuna para sa ligtas na pamilya, ligtas na bansa. Maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat.
President Rodrigo Duterte has welcomed the 8 new ambassadors to the Philippines, hoping to forge stronger cooperation on COVID-19 response, trade and investment, defense and security, and climate change. The President thanked UK Envoy Laure Bofils for the United Kingdom's assistance in repatriating Filipino nationals from Afghanistan. The President also thanked Hisham Sultan Al Zafir Al Qahtani, the Ambassador of Saudi Arabia, and the Saudi government for supporting the Philippines' efforts against COVID-19 and in the rehabilitation of Marawi City. Meanwhile, Belgium Ambassador Michel Paris cited the celebration this year of the 75th year of diplomatic relations between the Philippines and Belgium. Also welcomed by the President was the United Arab Emirates' new ambassador to the Philippines, Mohammed Obaid Salem Al-Kataam Al-Zaabi, Italian Ambassador Marco Clemente, Swedish Ambassador Annika Thunberg, Ilan Flas of Israel, and Leopoldo Lazatin as Ambassador of the Sovereign Military Order of Malta to the Philippines. Over 3 billion pesos worth of projects under the Support to Barangay Development Program or SBDP are already approved for implementation in CARAGA region. The Department of Interior and Local Government presented the approved SBDP projects before the National Task Force and Local Communist Armed Conflict on Wednesday. The budget will cover around 357 projects consisting of road construction, potable water projects, and other identified development projects. Butuan City got the highest allocation with 280 million pesos for 14 barangays with 23 projects. Among the provinces, Surigao del Sur was allotted the highest budget of 900 million pesos that will be implemented in 45 barangays. Meanwhile, President Rodrigo Duterte expressed his continued commitment to speed up the development in communities still infested with the New People's Army. National Security Advisor Hermogenes Esperon Jr. said the president shall resume his visits to the different regions to fast-track the development of conflict-affected and geographically isolated barangays. The NTF-ELCAC has identified a total of 822 villages that have already been cleared of NPA influence. These are expected to receive 20 million pesos each to fund their anti-insurgency projects. 74 former New People's Army rebels in South Cotabato have received assistance from the government this year through the Enhanced Comprehensive Local Integration Program or ECLIP. The Army's 5th Special Forces Battalion said the recipients were among the rebels who have surrendered since last year. These surrenderers included 8 indigenous peoples from Lake Cebu who decided to yield last April after serving as combatants for several years. Under the ECLIP, the former rebels received immediate and reintegration assistance as well as firearms remuneration and livelihood grants. Meantime, the Army monitors the situation of these surrenderers, especially their security, to prevent them from being recruited back by the NPA. The Army also conducts regular community support activities, especially in conflict-affected communities. The initiative is part of President Rodrigo Duterte's Executive Order 70, which provided for the whole-of-nation approach to end local communist armed conflict. The government on Wednesday rolled out its COVID-19 vaccination for student athletes, starting with the member schools of the University Athletic Association of the Philippines. 6 students received their first dose of Moderna vaccine as part of the Commission on Higher Education's Padyak para sa Flexible Learning Sama-samang Vaccination Program. The UAAP is planning to open its basketball competition by mid-February 2022, while volleyball is targeted after Holy Week. In a press conference, CHED Chairperson Prospero de Vera III said the government is in talks with the UAAP and the National Collegiate Athletic Association to tweak the existing guidelines for the training of collegiate athletes. He said it would be amended to adapt to the increase in the vaccination rate among the population. De Vera said the government is set to inoculate more in the coming days, including the athletes from NCAA. As part of the government's efforts to address nutrition deficiency in evacuation centers, evacuees may soon see the enhanced Nutribon or e-Nutribon along with their food packs. The Food, Nutrition and Research Institute of the Department of Science and Technology said the inclusion of the e-Nutribon will not only address malnutrition but also help small bakers earn with government as a sure market. DOST Cordillera Regional Director Dr. Nancy Bantog said the DOST FNRI came up with the reformulated micronutrient-packed soft texture Nutribon that even children will love to eat. She said there are also new variants like squash, carrot, and soon the malunggay that would address vitamin A and iron deficiency among Filipinos. Bantog said they are also promoting the products to the local government units, especially with several bake shops adopting the product as a regular item to sell. The reformulated bread was developed to address hunger and malnutrition amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Let's take another look at today's biggest stories. President Rodrigo Duterte wants the vaccination drive to go at a faster pace, this time in the provinces as it steps up to curb infections while more vaccine supplies pour into the country. Aid from Down Under, Australia donates another 100 oxygen concentrators to the Philippines to beef up COVID-19 response. Canberra will also increase its COVID-19 aid to Manila to buy more than 400 million pesos. No let-up in Manila's move against Beijing's continued incursions in the West Philippine Sea. The Foreign Affairs Department protests provocative acts of Chinese government vessels in the disputed waters. And the hope of a better future springs as two families are set to return to their hometown in Agusan Sur thanks to the Balik Probinsya Bagong Pag-asa program. As Filipinos, we all have a vital role to play in preventing the spread of COVID-19. So remember, wear face masks and face shields, wash your hands often, practice safe physical distancing, go out only for essential reasons, and get vaccinated as soon as possible to protect ourselves, our families, and the community. Together, we can beat COVID-19. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. For more news content, check our webpage or log on to the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also watch us on television on PTV4 and IBC 13. It's 65 days before Christmas. Before the holidays, let us remember to always follow the imposed health and safety protocols. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know from the PNA Newsroom. We tell stories that inspire change. I'm Marita Muaje. Stay safe and have a good day.